Hello, everyone, and happy Saturday. Today is April 11th, and we're so excited that you could be here with us today. My name is Jai, and I'm founder and CEO of the Latinista. For those of you who don't know a lot about us, we are a community of Latina professionals and women of color. I love the fact that you took some time today on a Saturday to learn a little bit about what's going on when it comes to your career and leadership development. Today, we actually have a special guest speaker. But before that, I just want to welcome you. Thank you for being here. And I want to mention what's currently happening today. We want to acknowledge the pain and the grief that's happening as a result of COVID-19, of course, especially as cases increase among our Black and Latinx communities, which is a really big, significant, and difficult situation to talk about. We want to make sure that we continue to do our part as part of our community. Definitely feel free to reach out to us if you need someone to talk to, someone to lean on, someone to help you in any way, shape, or form. And we want to send out a special thank you to our healthcare workers and friends who are in the front lines. Our prayers are for you and with you. Now I want to get started. And here at the Latinista, we are adapting content for this relevant time by uniting with our national chapters to identify things that our community needs. As some of you already know, we focus on professional development, how to be a confident public speaker, how to start your resume or LinkedIn profiles, how to invest in the stock market. So right now, I'd love to introduce to you Argelia. She's our co-lead from our Chicago chapter. She has helped organize events for the group to address Latina Equal Pay Day. We had an incredible event at Spirit Social back in November of 2019, just a couple of months ago, on financial empowerment and the power of personal identity. When she's not making cocktails for her business called Vida Mia Cocktails, make sure that you follow her on Instagram. She does great lives. She's a marketing director at Houseworth & co-hosting a podcast called Cocktails con Comadres with her friends. So without further ado, Argelia, thank you for being here and for moderating this conversation with us and Trina today.
Thank you so much, Jai. I'm really happy to be here. I had the pleasure of meeting Trina Fresco, and my co-host and I interviewed her for our Cocktails con Comadres podcast. And our topic was to talk about women health and our relationship with food. And wow, was my mind shifted. So I wanted to just tell you a little bit more about Trina before she shares her story and gives us some good advice. So Trina is a passionate health plus wellness equal wholeness advocate devoted to helping women discover what they need to be unapologetically great. After a year-long medical journey, including precancerous diagnosis, major surgeries and complications, and many unanswered questions, she found the inspiration to support women pursuing their own paths to thriving. I'm really happy to have Trina with us. She has really tapped into the power of plant-based nutrition to prepare for and heal for her surgery for illness and stimulate overall wellness. And with that, she cultivated a supportive community engaging content and powerful tools designed to meet women where they are, really at all stages of their journey. Proud to have Trina here and a little bit more about Trina before she embarked on her health and wellness mission. She's held a number of corporate executive roles and is a Six Sigma certified leader. She will be returning to her roots in science and getting a master's in public health from the University of Illinois at Chicago. So without further ado, I give you Trina. I will be helping moderate questions. We did reserve about 15 minutes at the end for Q&A. So with that, we have Trina.
Thank you so much, Argelia. Before I jump into my presentation, thank you to Jai, thank you to the Latinista, thank you to everyone who's joined. Holy Moses, I see 73 people have RSVP'd for this webinar. Talk about a pivot and shifting to continue living in this time of COVID that we find ourselves. And as I open my screen, I'll say that when Argelia reached out to me and said, you know, Trina, we see so many people that are talking about this thing called COVID-19, which is where people are talking about possibly gaining weight during this time. And how do we reframe that for people? And I think you might be a great resource to do that. So right now I am sharing my screen. Let me just make sure that I can see this and you can see this. Hold on. Close this message. Okay. Argelia, can you just let me know if I am screen sharing appropriately? For some reason, I'm not hearing. Can someone on chat just let me know that you can still hear? We can see the screen. Okay, perfect. Let's get going. Then without further ado, I'm just going to jump right into it. Some of these things I'm going to go through very quickly. I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the immune system. Then we're going to talk about how we can actually reframe our relationship with food. How do we go from sitting down and eating the bag of chips and the gallon of ice cream to sort of soothe the feelings that we have and instead reframe that to recognizing that we need to nourish our bodies and nourish our souls for all the right reasons. So this is me with a red pepper. And yes, I absolutely love my food this way. So first of all, I had a year-long medical journey. But before I jump into that, let me just tell you about what my life used to look like. I used to work a big corporate job, 60 to 80-hour work weeks. I found myself at one point coming home from a speaking opportunity in New York, making it home at 11 o'clock at night and finding out that my second daughter needed a costume for a play and being up until like 2 a.m. sewing whatever makeshift shark I could figure out and getting back up around 5:30 and realizing that it just was no quality of life. And I share that because I know so many of you as women do the same thing. We overextend ourselves. We put ourselves last on the list because we want to serve everyone. It's just in our nature. Well, I have to tell you that all of that actually manifests. Everything around us, our energy, the amount of time that we're putting into work, it all manifests itself. I just want to pop back over to the screen. Let's see here. I want to put this in a view that you guys can see it, but that at the same time, I can still see the chat. Okay, we're still perfect. All right, I'm going to keep on going. Argelia, I'm going to count on you to text me if anything technical goes on so that I can share this appropriately. So after that crazy 60 hours work at Nielsen, let me just check Argelia's text. Perfect. My son went into his own medical procedure and he was in a wheelchair for 9 months and I was his caregiver 100% 24 hours a day. And I share that because I know so many of you take care of others, right? You take care of your parents or your grandparents or your children or your nieces and nephews. And some of you have children with special needs. And, you know, having only done that for 9 months, I can tell you that I get how hard that really is. And all of that manifests itself. So in September of 2018, I was going to grab my daily period supplies and found out that I was on my 8th day of my period. This went on for 2 more days. It stopped for 3 days and it came back. I had a period for 21 days cumulatively in September. I knew something was wrong. I went to the doctor and my OBGYN said, you know, there's 13 reasons why women can have heavy bleeding and extra bleeding. And that's everything from a growth in your pituitary gland in your brain, all the way to a thyroid problem. And so I started going down the rabbit hole. And if anybody's ever dealt with any real medical issues, it feels like you're Alice in Wonderland going down this rabbit hole. Turns out I found out that I had a growth in my uterus the size of my thumb. And your uterus is only about the size of your palm. So that is definitely not supposed to be there. I had my first surgery in November where they removed the growth and did a full DNC where they shaved the inner lining of your uterus. They sent that to pathology, and the week of Christmas, I found out that all of the tissue inside my uterus was precancerous. Like, super Merry Christmas for me. And it was a really hard time. I didn't share it with a lot of people. I started looking for support groups and whatnot on Facebook, on the web, and there just wasn't enough of it there. And I realized very quickly that women don't talk about these things and other things culturally that sort of we feel ashamed about, or that there's some sort of a taboo concept. And so I I found out that week before Christmas, and I went in, and she started with, "I'm sorry." And none of us want to hear "I'm sorry" from any single doctor. And she said, "I'm sorry, but your entire uterus is filled with precancerous tissue, and you have two options." My very first option was to go on hormone therapy for 6 months. And if I carried the breast cancer gene, I would indeed be feeding it and potentially end up with breast cancer, or I could have a full hysterectomy. So I quickly and aggressively opted for the full hysterectomy. And I won't belabor, the trauma and the chaos and the emotions of that moment. This is not a unique story. So many of you have similar situations. And at that moment in my life, I would wake up tired every single day. It didn't matter if I got a lot of sleep or I didn't get a lot of sleep. I had body aches. I had headaches. I mean, truthfully, you can drop into the chat. I mean, how many of you feel like that right now? No matter what, you're not rested. No matter what, you don't feel well. No matter if you sit down and had that gallon of ice cream or a bottle of wine or champagne to make things better, or if you actually ate well for 3 weeks at a time, you just didn't feel well. And listen, while I wasn't the vision of health, I had run 2 marathons at that point in my life. So I thought I was doing fairly decently. So when I said, yes, I'll have my hysterectomy, that was the week of Christmas. Before I left, I said to my doctor, "What can I do to prepare for my hysterectomy?" And she looked at me like I had 3 eyes. And she's like, "Well, what do you mean?" And I said, "Well, should I be eating beets all day? Should I do yoga at 3 p.m.? And she was like, "I'm sorry, we do not study the correlation between food and medicine, so I have no guidance to give you." And I walked away probably feeling as desperate about not knowing what I could do to help myself as I did about knowing that I had a precancerous uterus. She told me that day, "You've got 1 month to 1 year before this becomes stage 1 cancer. And you need to come in and have your full hysterectomy really fast." And so I said, "Well, I've planned a vacation for my family in January. Can I come back in February?" She said, "Sure, but you have to take 10 days of hormone therapy." So I went on hormone therapy through the holidays and felt horrific. I felt crazy. I felt like, take your period and, extrapolate that times 100. I felt totally crazy. And, I was really lucky. I had 3 kids by that point. I didn't really need my uterus. Truth be told, you could have took it out, bronzed it, and put it up on the fireplace because it did a great job. So I wasn't that worried about that. So I came home and I started looking up diets for reproductive health, diets for a hysterectomy, and it simply didn't exist. So I started praying on it and putting out into the universe, and I started searching, all the big diets. And as a woman, I've done all of them just like you. I looked into Atkins, I looked into keto, I looked into South Beach, I looked into all these things, and not one of them gave guidance about what you could do to improve your reproductive health. And so I started sharing with a couple of friends very limitedly. And then I was celebrating New Year's Eve at my aunt's house, and it hit me like a ton of bricks that I was doing this to myself. You see, I'm Cuban and Irish. And on that very New Year's Eve celebration, we had cases, plural, of beer. We had cases, plural, of champagne. We had pork that we had roasted 8 hours. We had, I think it was 3 containers of dip for our chips. And I woke up on New Year's Day, took a shower. And you guys know, like, after you have a great 3-4 days of partying over holiday, my hair felt terrible. I was bloated. I just felt like trash. And it hit me like a ton of bricks that I was doing this to myself. No wonder I have precancerous cells in my uterus. Where else in my body might I have had precancerous cells just lingering? And I would ask you that question. Where might you have precancerous cells just lingering? We've all seen the data. We all know someone that has passed away from cancer. The prominence of cancer in our society is so high. So after much prayer and candle lighting and sharing with friends, someone I didn't even really know reached out to me. And that day when she reached out to me, I said, "God, whatever she says, I'll do." And we had one simple conversation, and she told me that I should become a vegan, and that's all it took. I became a student of my life, and I started focusing on plant-based nutrition, and I became a raw vegan. And you can see in these photos here that I was just absolutely enamored by plants and vegetables and learning. And listen, I have a degree in biology. I have a degree in science. You would think that I'd have a great handle on nutrition, but I didn't. And so here's part of my journey where I was having, fresh juices. I was having gazpachos where some people look at diets as restriction. I was looking at them as abundance. And I'm going to share in a little while a mantra of gratitude that I started, which completely shifted and changed my life. And I think it's going to help you reframe your relationship with food. So here's me, a day of surgery. I had my hysterectomy. I was so committed to my way of life that my husband even brought me my celery juice there in the hospital. When you have a hysterectomy, they tell you, be ready to be down for 6 to 8 weeks. And that you're going to have 3 main issues to overcome. Now, quick anatomy lesson. So we've got our vagina at the top of the vaginal canal. That is where your anatomy connects with your uterus. Then you have your fallopian tubes and it connects to your ovaries. They cut off at the top of my vaginal canal and put in about 30 stitches, removed my uterus and threw it away. Thank goodness I had the fortitude of a precancerous diagnosis and the ability to throw that away. Anyway, so they say when you wake up from surgery, waking up your bladder is going to be really hard to do because you're under full anesthetic and that area went through a lot of trauma. Ladies, I went to the bathroom and I was able to go pee without event. Then they said, when you walk from your hospital bed to the bathroom, you're going to probably need to hold a pillow on your stomach. You're going to need to be bent over. Ladies, all I needed was my husband's hand and I walked to the bathroom. And at night when he went home to be with our children, I just used the nurse's hand and it was no problem. Yes, I was in pain. I was on the medications that the doctors gave me, but typically the threshold of pain with a hysterectomy is so high that you're in so much pain, and I wasn't. Then they said, when you go home, don't even think about walking up to your bedroom. You're going to have to sleep on the first floor. I held the railing, walked up to my bedroom, and I was able to rest and relax and rejuvenate in my bed. And I know 1000% it is because I completely healed my body with raw plants and vegetables. So this is me 2.5 weeks after my surgery. Now, I was supposed to be down 6 to 8 weeks, but this is my niece, and I was supposed to stand with her on her confirmation. And so, damn it, I wasn't going to miss it. But you see, I'm wearing makeup. I'm wearing a belt. Now, I had a vaginal with laparoscopic assisted surgery. So I had 3 holes in my stomach with stitches on the outside, plus the 30 stitches in the inside. Those are little booties. That's 2.5 weeks. But here's what I want to talk to you about, how you can heal your body with plants and vegetables. So if we talk about the women that are on this call right now, I would say probably 60 to 80% of you are low in vitamin B12. That's not it's not life-ending, it's not life-threatening, but let's look at the bottom here of some of the impairments that come with low B12. It's everything from weakness, tiredness, constipation, diarrhea, numbness, tingling, vision loss, depression. So for those of you who have maybe been feeling like you're in a slump and you don't know why, listen, don't get me wrong. Your circumstance and your environment actually may be one that could be causing you depression or clinical depression. But at the same time, one of the side effects of low B12 is this exact problem. Now you can see in this graph here that on September 17th of 2018, my vitamin B12 level was 462. The only change in my body by February 5th was raw vegan nutrition. And you can see that it jumped up to 725. So while I wasn't deficient per se, I wasn't on the high range either. Let's talk about vitamin D. And this is a very interesting one. I want some of the ladies who are trying perhaps to have a family right now to pay attention to. So when you have low vitamin D, you can experience brittle bones, frequent bone fractures, muscle weakness, chronic pain, high or rising blood pressure, exhaustion even with enough sleep. Hello? Decreased endurance. And look at this last one, ladies. Vitamin D could be responsible for unexplained infertility. So my levels in September were 27.6 units. I was deficient in vitamin D. And the only thing that changed in my life was raw veganism. And look at that, 42 units by just February. And keep in mind, I only became a raw vegan on January 15th. That's not even a full month. And look how I healed my body. Now, this is a big one, and this is important, especially for brown and Black women. We tend to have high cholesterol as a community. And the thing is, if you look at the LDL cholesterol here, I was previously at 105. The threshold is 100. I was over. Now, what does it mean when you have high cholesterol or when your triglycerides are high? You have a higher chance of having a heart event, a heart attack. Like, think about the stories that you've seen and the people that you know. Can you imagine if they could have just lowered their lipid panel and saved their life? Well, this is not easy. Typically, when people have high cholesterol, they put you on a specific diet first, and then they give you medicines. It can be up to 6 months before you see a change with those medicines. You can see at the first Golden Star, I was at 105 when that all started. I dropped to 81 in less than a full month, 81 units. Then at my triglycerides, a 20-unit drop. My friends, with just food. Now, I want you to look at this before and after. On the left, December 2018, that was the New Year's celebration at my aunt's house that I was talking to you about. You can see all of the bloat. You can see the extra weight. I should tell you that in addition to healing my vitamin deficiencies, I lost 25 pounds. That was a side effect. I never walked into it. Lord knows I've lost my fair share of 10 and 15 pounds. It was never sustainable. It had never lasted. And here I am. This photo is from this month on the right-hand side, April 2020. You can see the difference. You can see the difference in vitality. My daughter looked at this picture and said, Mom, why are your eyes so much smaller on the left? It is because I was so bloated, so filled with inflammation, and of course, extra weight, that it was just all sort of coming on top of me. So since then, I have been committed to evangelizing good health. And this is just an example of some of the talks that I've done. I'm going to skip past that, though, because that's not why we're here. And let's talk about your immune system. And what in the world is it? This backdrop of an image, by the way, is from my Facebook group called Mommy Real Talk. And I love it because what you can see in all these beautiful faces of these beautiful women from different cultures, different religions, different age groups, is that we're all the same. The truth is we have so much more in common than we do in differences. And our immune systems are equipped to help us equally. Now, don't get me wrong. Some of us could have been born with genetic and hereditary issues that do compromise, like being born with things like sickle cell anemia, for instance. That really makes things difficult. And you can still try to live your very best life, but it sort of sets you off at a more difficult position. But anyone else, when we're talking about, well, I've been carrying 50 extra pounds for the last 10 years, ladies, I am not focusing on your weight because that is not what matters. But typically with the extra weight means things like fatty liver. It means things like the basic processes in your body aren't working. It means things like you could have a heart attack. Girls, I don't want anything to happen to you. So let's talk about what we can do about it and what our immune system is. So there's 3 basic processes that I need you to understand about our immune system, okay? They're natural processes. We're all born with them, of course, unless there's some sort of genetic predisposition. But the first thing our immune system does is that it destroys pathogens. It destroys bacteria, viruses, and parasites. Now, of course, when we talk about viruses, we're sitting in COVID, coronavirus 19. There has never been a more important time to talk about viruses than now. Then we also have this process in our immune system that neutralizes environmental hazards. So think about what happens to your body when you're around pollution, like if you live by a coal plant, for instance, or if you take in mercury through fish, through, it's actually through the coal mining or the coal fabrication process that mercury gets into our waterways and into our fish. And then the last thing that our immune system does is that it fights disease. Think of cancer. Now, there's 2 immune responses in our body. One is innate and one is adaptive. Innate means that your body is ready. It was born with the ability to sort of find something in your body, eat it up, and then dispose of it through your sweat, through your urine, through your feces. Adaptive means it is meeting something for the first time that it has never encountered before. And after a period of time, our body can build up antibodies to be strong against it. For instance, you may have seen on the news for coronavirus, there is no cure, there is no vaccine because we've not seen this strain of coronavirus. However, a year from now, 5 years from now, we will have a vaccine. And so our immune systems will have adapted to how to handle coronavirus in the future. I love this beautiful anatomical look. So this is what some of our cells in our body do. And I kept this super high level. I don't want you to get lost in the science. But essentially, we have processes in our bodies right now that do these things. So we have our white blood cells. So if you've ever heard, for instance, you'll hear it a lot with cancer patients, that their white blood cell count has gone up. That is a sign that these white blood cells, which are like the ninjas or the bodyguards of our body, that they're at work, and our body will create more to fight off certain things in our body. So if those numbers go up, those are indicative that there's a problem. But there's cells called lymphocytes, like the T cells and the B cells, that literally eat things and get rid of them in our body. Then we have cell growth regulation. So cancer is simply an overgrowth of cells in our body, and it doesn't stop. Well, our body normally has a cell growth regulation process where it tells cells, yo, slow down, stop growing. Please don't do that anymore. But when we develop oncogenes, which are cancer genes, and cancer genes can change our DNA, it can change the way cells behave. So those oncogenes let the cells keep reproducing. And this last thing, it's called apoptosis, very cool word. It is a really cool word for, I'm going to turn you off cell and I'm going to get rid of you. So it's actually a sort of a cell suicidal program. When a cell is not behaving correctly, these bodyguards in our body say, okay, it's time for you to die because you're not helping this system, and it gets rid of it. Well, sometimes when we have a suppressed immune system, or when we have a virus, or when we develop cancer, any one of these things can be reprogrammed or damaged, and then they stop working. Okay, I know that was a lot of science, so let's take a look at this car, because I think we can look at the immune system and think of it as this beautiful car. I think that this is a Lamborghini. Feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. But this car is gorgeous. Think of it as our bodies. We are born with a miraculous system that can regenerate, it can heal, it can learn, all of these things. But like this sports car, if we put mayonnaise in the gas tank instead of gas, it doesn't matter how beautiful it is. It doesn't matter how well it was engineered or programmed. It's not going to work. Same token. So you can look at the sports car and you can say, okay, I'm ready to go on a race. But if you've got one flat tire, the car is not going to do what it is intended to do. It is the same thing, ladies, with our bodies. And when you think of your immune system, I want you to recognize that it is meant to work and it is meant to succeed, but we could be doing things to damage it, to suppress it, to depress it, to deprogram it. And we want to stop that as soon as we possibly can. So what do we need to do? This is what we're here to talk about today. We need to reframe our relationship with food. Yes, I got a little cheeky with it. Those are glasses. Reframe. Okay, anyway. So here's what it is. Health plus wellness equals wholeness. I almost want you to write that on your mirror when we're done in lipstick, or put some Post-it notes. Health plus wellness equals wholeness. And this is everything, ladies. Everything, okay? I want you to understand that what we put into our bodies matters. What we surround our bodies with matters. What our thoughts are matter. They manifest. All of it manifests. I shared with you the amount of hours that I was working, exhaustion, poor nutrition, you're eating on the go. I shared with you all of the responsibilities that I had in caring for my son, that stress, that fear, that anxiety. It manifests itself in a toxic way. So let's talk about the concept of food is love. Listen, there is not a culture anywhere in the world that does not gather around food to celebrate all of the times of their life. We do it to celebrate the birth of babies and weddings and even funerals. And what a sad time that so many families are finding themselves in right now, that they can't gather to bury their dead the right way as a result of this coronavirus. But here's what we have to understand to be able to reframe our relationship with food. The only food that should be love is not the food that has lard in the cherry pie crust, and that means we love you. It's not the food that you've roasted it for 8 hours a day, and that is the best food. Now, I don't want you to get me wrong. I am not saying that forevermore you can't eat or consume or have those things, but it is about understanding the implication that they have on your body and making a decision that aligns with the concept of food is love when it loves us back. Yes, you can treat yourself. Yes, you can have some fun. I call myself a fresco vegan, and in the program that I developed, this is what we call it. And it means 90% of the time I live my life vegan, no exception to the rules. 10% of each week, I give myself flexibility, whether that is a glass of wine when I'm traveling, whether that is perhaps a dessert with sugar because I don't normally eat it, whether that is a piece of fish, once a week, once every 2 weeks. That is how I live my life, because I believe that we have to have flexibility. Normally, when we see rigidity, it doesn't work. The reason that New Year resolutions fail at a rate of 80% is because we try to go from living a life of eating brie and drinking wine and having French bread to like, oh, I'm going to only drink cayenne in lemon and water and honey for 7 days straight. And it never, ever works. So food is love. Yes, our grandmother's food is delicious, but it should be consumed in moderation. And in fact, when you start understanding that the food that you put in your body can nourish you or kill you, it's that basic. Like, I'm not going to beat around the bush for you. When you start to get that, you're going to start to reframe your relationship with food. The other thing is, normally when we start a diet, it feels like restriction. This is not a diet, my friends. This is a way of life. I want you to look at it with abundance. So I developed this gratitude mantra the first time I went and bought my first grocery run of vegetables and fruits, and I put them all on my kitchen counter. And I looked at them, and rather than just dive in and start making my salad, I took a look at them and I paused. And I want you to hear this clearly, okay? I paused, and then I thought about what human beings are working in subpar conditions to grow this food for me. Thank you to them. What human beings are stepping away from their family to put these fruits and vegetables on a truck and drive it across the country so that I can just walk into Whole Foods and buy it? Thank you. Then I thought about the people working in these markets, making minimum wage, not having health benefits so that I could just comfortably walk in there. Thank you to them. Thank you for the lottery of geography, because had I been born on the other side of the ocean where some of my sisters from other cultures are, I'd have to ask my husband if I could change the way I wanted to eat. Maybe I'd have to ask a religious leader. Maybe I'd be in a war-torn country where food was not even available. Going through COVID-19 and seeing the store shelves empty in a fashion that none of us have ever seen, I hope this has opened our mind and our hearts to the privilege that we have on a regular basis. When I developed this gratitude mantra, the food that I was eating wasn't a diet and it wasn't a restriction. It was my privilege. It's our privilege to be able to nourish our bodies in the fashion that we want. We have control of this. And I want you to understand, in these times of COVID, it doesn't have to be a COVID-15 where we're gaining weight because we're just sitting down and mindlessly eating because we're scared or we're sad or we feel lonely. The truth is, we have to recognize what we are feeling, not dismiss it, because any feeling you have is absolutely relevant and important. But we've got to address those feelings and deal with them. We don't have to eat through them. And when we recognize that what we are putting in our mouth is absolutely going to kill us or nurture us, then we have a choice to make. You guys, when I was told you'll have 1 month to 1 year to live, I didn't know if I was going to be celebrating another set of holidays. Nothing is more sobering than questioning your mortality. And the truth is, apart from any car accidents or crazy things like coronavirus, no day is guaranteed. We could walk out of here and have a heart attack. We could develop cancer, all of these things. And the truth is, we have control over them. You know, when you look at the incidences of breast cancer, for instance, I think it's only somewhere between 5 and 11% of breast cancer is actually genetic and hereditary. That so much of it is about the environment that we are putting ourselves in, what we're taking into our body. So, what are we going to do to focus on nutrition? The truth is, there are so many things that I could tell you that I want you to focus on, but let's focus on 6 things, okay? We can focus on 6 things. I know you girls can do this. So if we want to talk about boosting our immune system, before we can boost it, I want to ask you something for you to think about. What are you deficient in that you already know? Like, what have you seen a doctor for? Have they told you that you're low in zinc, you're low in iron? Have they told you you're low in vitamin D? Do you know, for instance, that you are on the borderline of developing diabetes? Do you know that you already have high cholesterol and that you are a candidate for a heart event? Because if you know those things, I want you to recognize something. Just like that Lamborghini, if we don't have all the tires filled with air and if we don't put the proper fuel, it's not going to go anywhere. Okay? That's the truth. So I need you to spend some time honestly recognizing what you need in your life that you already know about, and you've got to fix it. You see, if we're low in something, there could be a number of reasons why that happens. Like someone said to me, well, how did you heal your vitamins and your minerals? How did you heal those things without adding additional supplements? First of all, the nutrition I was gathering from my raw vegan food, outrageously beneficial. But on top of that, when you have a system that is not filled with inflammation, that is not filled with the acidic environment that meat creates, then your body can absorb things more efficiently. Like, just think about that for a minute. Your body is meant to have certain processes, and I'm not here to convince anybody to never eat meat again in their life, because the truth is, biologically, some of us are created and we can eat meat and it doesn't have a bad effect on our body. It's a small percentage of the population, but you absolutely can do it. All of the data is out there, and there's some really great documentaries. I love, The Game Changers is a great one. I love how it focuses on athletics and strength coming out of plant-based eating. But what I am recommending is that everybody do this at least for a small portion of time in your life to heal yourself. No matter who you are, there is still room to heal your system, to strengthen your immune system. If you're somebody that's always got a cold, if you're somebody that always has a headache, I'm sure I wasn't the only one who used to wake up feeling tired every single day of my life. It didn't matter what I was doing. Your body is trying to tell you something, ladies. And, I should have said when I was going into the description of my personal story that my body was trying to tell me something was wrong with my uterus. And I was too busy. I was too occupied. I was too not focused. There was too much noise in my life to recognize it. The first thing that happened to me, I went to the bathroom in March, and when I peed, it came into the toilet. It was tinted red. And I was like, that's different. Okay, interesting. That's different. And I didn't do anything about it because 2 days later it went away. Fast forward 2 months. I went to the bathroom and I noticed a scent in my urine, and it was not good and it was not bad, but there was a scent and it was different. My body was trying to tell me something, and I didn't listen until it was bleeding for 21 days. And listen, I have a friend who suffered through colon cancer, and she too shared with me that she noticed a scent in her urine. So I would ask you to think very, very, very calmly about, what's been going in my body that I haven't been paying attention to. Headaches every day are not normal. Ailments, little things. We are not meant to walk around like sort of a broken machine. We're meant to be like the race car. We're meant to be strong. All right, so let me go back. Let's talk about nutrition focus and why did I choose these 6 things. Vitamin C. Yes, we all hear about vitamin C, but what you may not know is that we do not make vitamin C in our body, nor do we store it. We literally have to consume it every day to have the right amount of vitamin C in our body. It also is a powerful antioxidant, and we have to geek out for 1 minute. So oxygen, when it's traveling through our body, is supposed to have all 8 electrons filled. Yes, I know we're getting a little bit into chemistry. What happens is that you get these free radicals in your body where the oxygen loses an electron. So when you see things that are called antioxidants, it's because it is trying to cure the problem that the oxygen have and fill its valence electrons completely. So vitamin C is a natural, powerful antioxidant, and that helps our body fight illness. Now let's talk about iron. Iron is important because it helps carry oxygen to the cells. It's such a basic principle. And then let's talk about potassium. Potassium helps our blood pressure remain low, and in stressful times, that can help us avoid a cardiac event. So think of the cultural predisposition to high cholesterol. If we can do something to keep our blood pressure lower, that's going to help us not have a heart event. And we all live very stressful lives, and sometimes you can't eliminate all of the stress around you. So having more potassium can help you naturally. Let's talk about zinc. It helps the immune system fight off invading bacteria and viruses. Now, I don't want you guys to see any one of these things and go bonkers and go buy like zinc tablets and only have zinc in your mouth 24 hours a day. That's not what I'm suggesting here. I'm not suggesting fanaticism. I am suggesting a shift to where your food becomes your medicine. Vitamin E, like vitamin C, vitamin E is also a powerful antioxidant that helps us fight off infection. And lastly, vitamin A, it also has an antioxidant effect, but it helps strengthen the immune system against infection. So what foods, might you ask, can we find these 6 things in? Here's a list. Now you'll notice that there are some like reoccurring subjects. Some of these things you'll see in a couple of places. That is the incredible value that fruits and vegetables bring to your life. Like if you look at cantaloupe, you can find cantaloupe in the vitamin C category, and you can find cantaloupe in the vitamin A category. So if we quickly look through it, you know, in vitamin C, it's tomatoes, avocados, cucumbers, things like papaya, sweet potato. For iron, tofu, legumes. And listen, when it comes to tofu, I know there's a lot of sort of controversial science going back and forth on whether or not that's okay for women. And I would suggest that you work with your own OBGYN to make those decisions. Listen, I am not a doctor. I am getting my master's degree in public health. And what a time to be getting your master's degree in public health than when there's this public health pandemic that will forever go into the history books. But work with your OBGYN on whether or not tofu works for you. So going back to iron, cashews, which I love. Oh my gosh, homemade cashew butter is literally my vice. Pumpkin, sesame for potassium. Potatoes. I know so many different diets have us thinking that potatoes are perfectly unacceptable, but that's not true. It's all in the preparation of how you do things. And clean eating is about just making the right decisions. I eat, you guys, if I were to tell you the truth, I'm a 300-pound girl in disguise. I love food, okay? Like my favorite snack before all of this literally was like a wedge of triple cream brie, a big French baguette, and a bottle, yes, a bottle of red wine. That was my favorite thing. Now, some of my favorite snacks are like fresh cut strawberries with homemade macadamia nut butter and a homemade coconut cream on it. No sugar added, all homemade, and it tastes like literally like a strawberry shortcake. Okay, I digress. So if we look at zinc, things like chickpeas, quinoa, lentils, vitamin E, hazelnuts, almonds, sunflower seeds, vitamin A, carrots. I don't know if you guys saw my social media, but best place to connect with me is at Instagram, and it's just Trina Fresco. But I did this great video about doing a carrot ginger fresh pressed juice to fight. And this was just when coronavirus was starting. I think this was back in January. Just the idea of it was starting to come up. So Jai and Argelia said, you know, if you have anything to give women some direction, share that with them. So when I went through this process and I would go speak publicly, people would say, oh my gosh, where's the book? I don't want to reinvent the wheel. I just want to follow it. So I started to write a book. And then it dawned on me that that was just one girl's story. And, you know, sure, I could have written it just like that, but I decided that I was going to tap back into my roots in science. And I created a medical research project. So I have written a methodology called the Fresco Method. It's a 75-day program, 4 different phases. And the results that came back from blood work and from measurements, the biometrics, were absolutely incredible. And we have 100% healing of cholesterol. It's super exciting. So if you're interested in joining that first public cohort, you can go to my website, trinafresco.com, and sign up to get added to the wait list for that. And that is the end of my slideshow. And I knew I flew through that really, really fast, but that's okay. Let me stop sharing my screen. So the last thing that I want to say before we get into Q&A in 2 minutes is this. I have a degree in science. I worked with Dow Chemical, and then I worked on a mayoral campaign for a period of time. And then I worked with Nielsen, and I was a writer for NBC Latino. And I just want you guys to understand that whatever your path is, no matter how unconventional, it's all for a reason. I've gone through so many different experiences in my life. Every job that I had was meant to happen to put me in this position that I'm in today. I'm getting my master's degree in public health. My intention is to actually create research between food and medicine and to be able to publicly distribute diet plans with the American Medical Association. And I want to encourage you that whatever your path is, it's meant to be. I know that sounds crazy, and well, it's so easy for her to say, I want you to know the highs and the lows, they were all meant to be to get you where you are today. All right, so I'm gonna grab some water, Argelia, while we jump over to Q&A.
Yes, Trina, thank you again. I'm going to jump right in so we have enough time. So I'm going to go into the Ask a Question section first, and then I'll scroll through the questions we had on the right. So starting with,
Let's do it.
Okay, great. Can you hear me well?
I sure can.
I've really considered switching to a plant-based diet, but the rest of my household is not on board. How can I manage?
That is such a good question. So I'm going to tell you this. And if you can give me names with these questions, I love to address my sisters by name. So
Josie.
Okay, Josie, what I'll say is this. I make 2 meals regularly in my house, almost for every single meal session. And I try to build recipes where I can make myself, let's say I've made a homemade tomato sauce for pasta. I will serve myself, and then I have some beef for my kids and my husband, and then I put that on there. So while it's 2 separate meals, I've kind of like built on them. But the question I want to ask you is, how important is your health to you? So the rest of the house might not be fully on board, and that's okay. You're worth it. And they might follow your lead slowly but surely, but we're meant to lead as women. It's what we do. When we figure things out, we bring our girlfriends with us, we bring our family with us, and before you know it, we're all better for it.
Amen to that. Next question by Monse. For those who aren't ready to go full raw vegan, would you recommend B12 vitamins or other supplements?
So I'm going to say that even if you are a vegan, a raw vegan, a pescatarian, or you're not on any diet, supplementing is very important because there's about 8 to 10 vitamins and minerals that the human body does not create on their own. And you have to either get that from nutrition or from supplements. The best way to figure out whether you have a deficiency or you need more of something is to actually visit a doctor, and they can run an entire blood work to figure out what you're low in. It's very easy to do, and I highly recommend it. So you're not kind of like shooting in the dark and trying to say, well, here are my symptoms, what might I be low on? That would be my recommendation, is that supplementing is very important regardless of any diet that you have.
I have Josie who asks, what is your thought on green superfood powder?
Oh, well, that's a very general question because there are so many green superfood powders on the market. I would say this, it is so important to look at ingredients for anything. And I'm going to give you an example. I was losing my hair at one point following my hysterectomy. And so I worked with my dermatologist, a close, one of my best friends. And so she told me to take things like biotin, and then I used Rogaine, blah, 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 blah. Well, I found out that my biotin was not a vegan biotin. So even though I was a vegan, the capsule itself used gelatin, which was animal-based. So going back to your question, superfoods are great, especially if you can get them in a powder and you can put them into a smoothie or something like that. But pay attention to the ingredients. Make sure what you want is the shorter amount of ingredients as possible. So I'll tell you, in a pasta sauce, for instance, you should never have more than 10 ingredients, and they should all be things that you can read, like tomatoes and green peppers. But if you're seeing ascorbic acids and you're seeing all these other things, that's where we're getting into processed foods and these preservatives to make them last. So read the ingredients, and I think superfood greens are amazing.
Thank you. This message is from Yoli. I went vegan for 2 years or so as part of my yoga certification. However, anemia I had as a child came back, and the doctor was concerned plants weren't giving me enough iron. Any comments on that?
Yeah, Josie, Yoli. First of all, congratulations on your yoga certification. That is amazing. And congratulations for having become a vegan for 2 years. That's not easy to do. Yoli and everybody, when you become a vegan, remember what I told you, that certain vitamins and minerals are not organically created in our body, and we need to supplement. So without knowing what your nutrition plan was or the recipes that you were using, I would say take an assessment of what you're planning to eat. And if you already know, because you said it came back, if you knew you were low in iron when you became a vegan, you should have researched, like I gave you that list of things that were high in iron, and every single meal you ate should have had one of those ingredients in them to provide you the iron that you need. And doctors are a tricky thing because remember, there's no data, research, correlation between food and medicine. So a doctor's always going to say, oh, no, switch that. Go to these supplements. I don't know about vegan because they can't push that. Here in the West, they don't. So people can actually see you in the mirror, by the way. By the way, that's my husband dancing like a crazy person. Anyway, so I would highly recommend to eat around the things you need. Your food is your medicine. So if you are considering becoming a vegan, if you are a vegan and you know you have deficiencies, baby girl, just eat into them, lean into them, and heal yourself. Power yourself up, and then where you need to supplement. And I use only plant-based supplements, which you can find easily in stores.
Trina, how many meals a day do you eat? This is also by Yoli.
Yoli, listen, I told you I was a 300-pound girl in disguise. And what I love about being a vegan is that I do not restrict myself based on what size is my food, how much does it weigh, how many calories are in it. I eat when I'm hungry as much as I want because the things that I'm eating are wholesome and homemade and come from whole plants. So I don't have to worry like with other diets, like, wait, don't eat so much of that chocolate or that ice cream. Now, I will tell you the only restriction that I put on myself is when I'm intermittent fasting. And I've added intermittent fasting to my life because it is supposed to be helpful for hormonal balance. And following my hysterectomy, the blood flow to the rest of the reproductive system that's still there is never as good as when it was fully intact. So I've been working on some intermittent fasting for myself, which they say can help. So when I'm doing that, then I only eat for 8 hours and then I don't eat for 16 hours. But those are the only restrictions as far as time is concerned. So I eat as many meals as I want. And so there's a lot of like, let me grab a mango with some lime and salt, or let me have pasta, whatever the case might be. I eat when I'm hungry.
Thank you. That actually addresses a question that came through about what your thoughts are on intermittent diet. And it sounds like you've chosen, you've chosen what time that works for you. So I think that addresses my Castro's question, but Maria, let us know if there's anything else that you want to add. I also have a question.
No, it addresses. Sorry, Aurelia, it addresses it, but what I will tell you as when making any decision for your body is please do the research and make these decisions that align with you and your goals. Now, the only time I would tell you that you need to consult a doctor on decisions like this is if you have pre-existing conditions that can really be affected by your diet. So only you know your medical history, so talk with your doctor if you think that you need to. If you are on maintenance medications, talk to your doctor.
Cool. Thank you, Trina. This question is from Jenny. What are good probiotic foods? I think I might have issues with digestion because I feel so bloated and heavy, and I started taking probiotics, and it has helped tremendously. But I sometimes forget the probiotics. If I can focus on fruits or foods that have probiotics, that would be better.
So here's the thing, without knowing the exact issue, I can't give you a specific recommendation, but what I will tell you is that I take probiotics every single night. I take about, I want to say 12 different vitamins, minerals, and supplements before bed and in the morning every single day, and a probiotic is one of them. Now, something that's very interesting when you do start eating more plants and vegetables is there's some like considerations that you have to make knowing who you are. The first thing I would say is give yourself some time. If you have a digestive system and a gut that is really delicate and really gentle, it's going to take a good 3 months to see what the effects of a plant-based diet will actually have on your body. In that time, I highly recommend taking a standardized probiotic because if I tell you, well, strawberries are great, who knows if you're going to eat the right amount or not? But if you can take a capsule of a probiotic every single night that you know is a good one, then you can standardize that variable in your life. And again, please give yourself at least 3 months on any new nutrition plan as you're working through healing yourself.
Great, thank you. Monse asked, how often do you recommend getting your blood work?
Oh, that's a great question. Hi, Monse. Thank you so much for joining. I appreciate you. So I would recommend, this is 2 parts. So if you have no medical issues and you just want to get yourself to be your healthiest self, I would say do your blood work the moment you decide to make some changes so you have that baseline. If you remember when I showed you my vitamin D, vitamin B12, cholesterol, it is when I was going through my medical problems. But then I did it again right before surgery. So let's say that you know that you have low vitamin D, iron, and something else. 3 months is about the time that it takes a nutritional plan to heal things inside as much as it can, if you will. So I would say do it the moment you decide you want a healthier life. And you could, that depends on sort of your economics. You could do it once a month from then. You could do it once every 3 months. You can go see your doctor for that. And let's say you don't have insurance and you just want to know where you can go. Quest Diagnostics allows you to go get your blood drawn, and you can decide what you want to test and then retest later on. Georgia.
I have a question from Marilyn. How do you manage family gatherings, holidays? Do you typically take your own food?
Marilyn, that is such a great question. So I want you to know that when I make decisions, I'm unapologetically great about it. I don't apologize to anyone for what I need to do in my life to be my best self. So that includes when I go to, if we're having a gathering and we're going to Gibson Steakhouse with friends, I will have my salad dressing in my purse, and then I will ask for a custom salad to be made, and I have no problems with that. Even though I'm at Gibson's, I'm pulling it out of my purse. Now, when I go to someone, right, now when I go to a family member's house for a holiday, I'll tell you about Thanksgiving with my mom. She literally called me and was like, okay, what do I make for you? I don't even know what to cook for you. And what an expression of love, right? Now, first, I will say to her, don't worry about it, because I don't want anybody going to any extra trouble for me. And when you are so serious about your nutrition, it's almost easier to make it and take it on your own. But let's say it's your mom and, she wants to make something for you, then you simply walk her through the process. Pick a recipe that's easy. You can send it over to her or walk her through it. So I was like, Mom, okay, so I'm going to have butternut squash, and I want you to season it the same way that you season the turkey, and then you'll roast it for 45 minutes. And it was a learning experience for her and such a beautiful expression of love. And I was so appreciative of it. So I do both is the answer to the question.
Marilyn also wanted to know if you have any authentic Cuban recipes that you now make plant-based.
Yes, baby. So you can go to my website. I have a lot of my recipes there. The other place that I do a lot of sharing is on Instagram. So it's Trina Fresco. And I'm doing more and more and more of that. So 2 things that I absolutely love that I make is, it started out when I was a kid, fricassé de pollo, which is like chicken and red sauce for anybody that doesn't speak Spanish. And this is the recipe that means so much to me. I can literally close my eyes and picture my father, who's passed away, making it when we were kids. And so I make that, but with cauliflower, and it is amazing. Like, it's so good. I don't even need the chicken. But on those times then that I am going to eat some fish, because I've done some research on omegas, and there really is comparing the omegas that you can get from fish as long as they're low mercury fish. So I do have fish once to twice a month, if you will. But yes, fricassé de cauliflower. And then my black beans, normally that's like, put a ham hock with a piece of a pig's bone in there, and then that gives all the flavor. And I have figured out a black bean recipe with no meat in it, which I absolutely love.
Great. I have a lightning round of questions. There's 3 that I have. Do you have any recommendations for foods to address a slow thyroid? I take Synthroid daily for imbalance. This question is from Iris.
Okay, so I'm going to tell you something, Iris. I have a friend that just sent me a message saying, Trina, I just wanted to let you know that I went through a hysterectomy. So she's a friend that I used to work with many years ago. She said, I want you to know that I became a vegan before my hysterectomy because of your journey. And since doing that, my doctor has been able to lower the amount of Synthroid that I am on because of this, and I just wanted to thank you. This message just came into me last week. So I wouldn't say that there's a specific food that you can eat to help balance the thyroid, but I will tell you, plant-based nutrition in general, for my friend, increased the level of absorption that the Synthroid she was taking was affecting her thyroid, to the point that they were able to lower the amount, which is pretty darn exciting. And this is why I'm saying that when I finally get my degree in public health, these are the research studies that we need to do to say, like, oh, hypothyroidism or hyperthyroidism, here's your nutritional plan. So stay tuned. In the next, 6 years, those will be the things that I'm going to work with the American Medical Association to get published.
Cool. This is very helpful. A question from Tara. If you are addicted to sugar like me, what are some natural foods that fulfill a sweet tooth?
Tara, listen, you're so normal. Let me just say that. And let me step back on the addiction to sugar. One thing I need you guys to all understand is that foods and preservatives and chemicals have been built in to get us addicted. That's how they get us to keep buying the same thing, so that when we see that advertising and the commercial on TV, we'll be like, oh my God, yes, I need that. It triggers our brain the same way heroin triggers a drug addict's brain. So when you say addicted to sugar, that's a real thing. My suggestion ultimately would be for you to come off sugar altogether, because that's the only way to free your biological system from needing it. In the meantime, while you're bringing it down, here's things to consider. Don't buy it. If you've got things in your pantry, give them away. I don't want you to throw them away, but give them away. Don't replenish the supply. And then dried fruits, sticky things. So lots of smoothies with tons of berries that are really sweet. You can add a couple of dates in there, which is almost like vegan caramel, if you will. You can make homemade nut butters, which have a lot of sweetness to them as well. You can take a peek at my website. I've got some really nice, like there's a pina colada smoothie on there that, you know, kind of feels like you're at the beach and all you're missing is the Bacardi, but it's super sweet and it's super luscious.
Thank you. Last question. So we've all been there. How do you get back on track once you've fallen out of your path without beating yourself up?
Yes. Let me say this to you, ladies. Grace. Okay? We need to offer ourselves grace. And the thing is, life is not all or nothing. A nutritional plan is not all or nothing. If you make a mistake, first you have to acknowledge it and be accountable to yourself. Like, dang it, I did make a mistake. Okay. Let me address that and let me know that I'm going to do better because I deserve it. That's why. So when you pursue nutrition so that health and wellness can equal wholeness, it's a lot less about, well, don't eat that sugar so I can fit in a size, 4 jean. No, it is about, I want my heart to pump long enough to watch my grandchildren one day, graduate college. It is about the reasons that you're doing it that will help you make a good decision or a bad decision. But let's say that you made a decision that doesn't align with your goals. Grace, honey, give yourself grace and be like, okay, I did it. Okay, now let me go back to the plan. But that's also why I've created this thing called the Fresco Vegan, so that 10% of the time you can be adding things in there that aren't fully vegan, that allow you to live a life like a human being.
Thank you. I lied. One more extra question. Any food recos for hair loss?
Oh, girl. Okay, so it's more lifestyle recos for hair loss. First of all, biotin is a great supplement. Biotin is part of the vitamin B family, however. And so when you go on plant-based nutrition and you can eat the right things to build up your vitamin B, B6, B12, it's important. Supplement with biotin. The other thing that I want you to understand about hair loss is that it's highly related to hormone imbalances in a lot of cases. Well, how do our hormones go out of balance, you ask? Sometimes it has to do with sleep. So we only, as women, create testosterone in our deepest levels of sleep. So if we're only sleeping 4 hours a night, or even if we're sleeping 8 hours a night, but we sleep with a snorer, we live by the L, put in the earplugs and do what you can to get better quality sleep, because if your testosterone level is low, it throws off your estrogen and your progesterone. And then you've got this crazy, like, I'm in the ocean with a boat that has a hole in it. So more rest. Try to stress less. I know that's, hard to do when you're losing your hair. Take your biotin and eat healthier. And then I have to tell you that you've got to give yourself 3 to 6 months before you measure whether or not your hair loss has improved. It takes 3 to 6 months.
Thank you again. Thank you to everyone for joining. We hope you enjoyed connecting with Trina and our community during this challenging time. We'll receive an email from us with follow-up information, and we hope to see you at our next webinars. We do have our next webinars. The topics are imposter syndrome, estate planning, and finding joy through mindfulness. So follow the Latinista.com for all future events, including our cafecitos. And happy Saturday to everyone. Thanks so much, Trina, for your time. We appreciate you.
It's my pleasure. Thank you so much, everyone. And you'll be getting a newsletter from me as well. I'm going to wait till next week since we have our holy holidays. If you celebrate Passover, if you celebrate Easter, blessings to you. If you do not, blessings to you anyway.
Yes. Thank you, everyone. Adios.
Ciao.